Hello, folks. Again, hope you all are fine, and I am as always fine. Today we are going to continue with our first chapter, which is the living world. In last lecture, we have talked about the diversity in this living world, where we talk about it how different kind of living things are in our world. It's not only our world, right? There are different kind of things. For example, there are animals, there are plants. Okay, in that there is a division too. So how we can have this diversity? Okay, in that we discussed that we've given a particular name which is called a scientific name, and that we followed the binomial name system which is given by Carl Linnaeus, right? And there were some rules which we talked about, that you have to write in a Latin or Italy, and if you are writing by like your hand, you have to underline the whole name, and then the first word should be genus, the second word should be species always, the first letter of that scientific name should always be capital, and other words are always in a small letters. Other than then you can add some, for example, you are writing the name of mango, which is Mangifera indica. Okay, so in that, if you want to add the scientist name, you can write it Mangifera indica Lin, because for example it was found by Linnaeus. Okay, so these are some rules which you have to follow or you can follow. So now that we've already talked about that how you can give name. Okay, you have talked about that how you are going to give name. You talk about nomenclature. We have talked about identification, that you first have to identify that thing and then you are going to name it. This is the thing we have already studied. But in between there is one more thing which is called as a classification, and that is the exact thing which we are going to talk about today. Okay, so we are going to talk about classification. So it's like, see, you have identified the thing now. Okay, now you are going to classify it. Why there is a need of this classification? First of all, what is classification? So in a simple word, you are dividing things. Okay, you are dividing things. Why there is a need of dividing things? I mean, you are just making some different categories, you can say. So let me give you a common example. For example, I give you a task where this is a pile of books, and I ask you that find me a book that is related to science and has an environmental review in that. Okay, so like environmental science. So how much time it will take you to find that book from this pile of books? Okay, because every book is here, okay, but they are mixed kind of book. There is also a commerce book, science related books, like lower standards book, higher standards book. So it is going to take you time and too much of hard work. But if I give you the same task, okay, and ask you to find it from here, so it is going to take you less time and less hard work. Now you tell me why. Because as you can see here, there are different kind of section. Okay, they have categorized each sections. For example, this is only science related books. Okay, so this is only science related book. This is, for example, only commerce related book. And this is, for example, some arts related book. So when I tell you to find a book which is of science and environmental, you have to find it from this area only, right? So because it is more manageable, they have managed all the thing very clearly and there are different sections, it becomes much easier for you to find that. Similarly, we have a vast biodiversity like we have just saw in last lecture, and imagine each of them with even their scientific name in this manner, like all together. It is how difficult it is going to be if you want to identify something, or find that if a new species have been found, it is old or new. So it is going to be much difficult. But if we actually classify this species in particular manner like this, so it is going to become much easier for us, and that exactly is what we call as a classification. The process by which anything, okay, here of course we are going to divide the living things, but the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories. What did you mean by convenient categories? Whatever is visible for you, whatever thing is convenient for you, you are going to group it in that way. For example, here we have grouped by streams. For example, science stream, commerce stream. So that was convenient for you. Now, if I want to divide again, in science, I will divide physics, chemistry, biology. So whatever is convenient for you, you are going to categorize them. Okay, and that in a normal way, you can say dividing, or you have grouped them. Based on what? Based on some easily observable characters. Very important. This is a definition of classification. If someone asks you, you have to write this, that this is a process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on like some easily observable characters. Okay, for example, let me take you to this where we talk about animals. Okay, so we are going to talk about animals right here. When I say you that take name of animals, we'll say dog, cat, right? We are also into animal in one kind of, right? How can you differentiate between dog and cat now? Okay, because there are some characters which are different in dog and different in cat. But there are some characters which are similar in both, and based on that you have put them into the same category which is called as animal. Right? So you are dividing them or grouping them by your convenience. They all have 4 legs, put them into animal. 4 legs animal. But some characters are different. So we have further divided into like semi-group. Okay, into dog and cats. So this is because you can observe some different characteristic between them. Now if I say living things, okay, but you know that this is animal and this is plant, right? This is plant. How you can say just by seeing that this is plant or this is animal? Okay, I do not know how to draw an animal, but let me just draw something with a 4 line. Yes, so this is an animal. Okay, how you can differentiate between these two? Because there are some characteristic which is present in them and not present in here. For example, they cannot show you movement. Okay, they are steady, though they are living, but they can show you movement. So this is a different group and this is a different group which you have grouped by your convenience, observing different kind of characters. For example, movement was one character which I have observed. Okay, so this particular grouping, okay, where you are conveniently categorizing them, this is a group which you have conveniently, by your convenience you have categorized. This is called as classification. But each of this group in scientific word, what you are going to call this group or this categories, each of these categories are called as taxa. What we are going to call it? We are going to call it taxa. Okay? Scientific word, you can say. Now, don't get confused between what is taxa and what is not. Each of them is taxa. You see, taxa on a different level. For example, animal itself is also a taxa. And then the semi-division which we have done, the dog itself is also a taxa, this group. This group is also taxa. Further, when you are going to divide this dog into different on the basis of the species, okay, for example, German Shepherd and Alsatians and all, that is also a taxa. Okay, so all of these are taxa on a different, respective different levels. For example, so this is just a scientific word for a classification or a grouping. Okay, so if I say what is taxa, so classification, this classification process. Okay, so each class is called as taxa and this whole process of classifying, okay, classification is called as taxonomy. Getting it? Okay. If I say in a more scientific way, all living organism, okay, all living organism can be classified on the basis of their characteristic into the different taxa. Now you know what is taxa. Now you know that there are different characteristics which you are observing and you are classifying them. And this is the exact definition of taxonomy, right? Now based on some simple characteristic, easily observable characteristic, what are these characteristics which you are observing and actually dividing them or grouping them, okay, classifying them. So this character are, some of them are external characters. What did you mean by external characters? Which you can see by your naked eyes. Okay, externally I can see that plant cannot move. That is an external character which I have observed. Then internal structure. Okay, for example, plant cells do have cell wall. Animal cells do not have cell wall. This is an internal character which I have observed. Okay, or structure. Other than that, their cell structure. So this is the same kind of example where I talk about cell wall and all. Okay, cell structure. Other than that, there is different process. Okay, different processes going on into the different kind of organism. For example, plant do go for photosynthesis, but do we do this process? No. So there is a different in this characteristic that they do this process, we don't. So on this different characteristic which we can observe, and on the basis of this different characters, we have now classified this whole living world, you can say. Further, like back in time when we do not have much knowledge about these things, we used to classify it then also. Okay, but there was a different time. So we used to classify it on the basis of our convenience. Again, we are dividing into our convenience only, but more in a scientific way and taking all the other characteristics. But like on that level, where back in the time, we used to classify them into basis of the uses. Okay. Yeah, like what are the uses of this different kind of organism for me? For example, ship is I'm using ship for my clothes, so I'll divide them into the clothing factor, like class. If some you can say deer or something are for you are going to eat them like meat, so you are going to divide them into the food section. So you are doing this classification system for very old time, but they were on the basis of the uses. Now you are classifying it with all this characteristics included. Okay, other than that, we've always been curious about that. Okay, now you can see this characteristic properly. So other than that, we've also always like curious about that what are the relationship of us with this other kind of living. Okay, like we are the not only ones on this earth, a great reminder in a capital letters which we have to remind ourselves all the time that it's not only us, there are other living things too. See, we are kind of curious that what are the relationship of us with them. Like if I want to know that what could be a relationship of me with them. So that curiosity takes me to that another level of searching. And that becomes a whole different study group, or you can say a different way of studying. For example, this is a taxonomy. So if you are going to study about or research about the relationship between us and the other living, that study is called as systematics. What is it called? It's called as systematics. So in this systematics, what you do, you actually see that what are your relationship with these people. Remember now, let me see you may have heard that in a normal way that these monkeys are our forefathers, right? How you have come to that conclusion that monkeys are our forefathers? Okay, yeah, in few lectures you are going to know that it's not monkey, it actually are the apes, okay, which are our forefathers, but very much similar, chimpanzee and more of a apes. Okay, so how did you get to this conclusion that these monkeys are our forefather? Because of the study of the systematics, where you actually study the relationship, okay, between us and other living beings. So there's a kind of an evolutionary studies. Okay, you are evolutionary observing what kind of evolution has been there till now. So because we can see that more and more characteristics are similar, only some have changed. So that change character are the evolution which has been done in past this much of years. Okay, Other than that, we were saying, so they are our forefathers. This whole study is called as a study of systematics. And now, because whenever we study, we include this evolution relationship also. Okay. So on the basis of the systematics includes, first of all, identification. So you first have to identify it, whatever it is. Then you are going to name it, so which is nomenclature. You have studied this too. Okay, last lecture. Today you have studied the classification system. And all of this together are included in systematics, you see. So in classification, with these characters, you also see the evolutionary studies, okay, that either it is already present or how much similar it is from the previous living organism, or it is completely new, so I have to classify it into the new taxa. So all things you observed with this all three, and the study of this thing is called as classification. So next lecture we are actually going to classify this living world, which is very vast, and right now it is like this pile of books. From in next lecture it is going to look like this. So stay tuned for that very important lecture. And in today's lecture you have to remember this like definition of taxonomy, systematics, and yes, that is all. The definition of this classification, all three definitions are much important in this particular thing. Other than that, much important things are coming in next lecture. So till then, stay tuned.